Hello, everyone, and welcome from Amsterdam to today's press briefing. I'm Marie-Agnes Heine, and I'm in charge of the Communication Department at the European Medicines Agency. As usual, we will first update you on the most recent developments regarding COVID-19 vaccines and treatments, and will then open up the floor for questions. I'm joined by three colleagues today: Dr. Marco Cavaleri, the head of Biological Health Threats and Vaccine Strategy and chair of the EMA Pandemic Task Force; Dr. Fergus Sweeney, the head of the Clinical Studies and Manufacturing Task Force; and Dr. Georgy Genov, the head of Pharmacovigilance. As always, the briefing is broadcast via YouTube and Europe by satellite, and the footage can be used free of charge by all media. You will find the respective links in the invite to this briefing. I'm now giving the floor to EMA's Head of Biological Health Threats and Vaccine Strategy, Dr. Cavaleri, who will provide you with a short update. Dr. Cavaleri, please.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining today's COVID-19 press briefing. I will provide you with a brief update on some recent developments, and then we will open the floor for your questions. While many European countries are lifting restrictions and returning to pre-pandemic normal life, we notice that infection rates are increasing again in some member states after the steady decrease we witnessed over the past few weeks. These appear to be at least driven by the increasing circulation of the BA.2 subvariant of Omicron, which seems to be more transmissible than other variants of SARS-CoV-2. We are continuing to assess data on the effectiveness of COVID-19 vaccines and treatments against Omicron and its subvariants of concern. In the face of rising infection rates, it is important to stress that vaccination continues to offer high protection against hospitalization and death due to COVID-19, despite, according to some studies at least, some reduction of protection from severe disease is occurring over time, at least in the most vulnerable populations. There is at present no indication that immune evasion after vaccination is significantly different with the Omicron BA.2, while the pattern of activity of monoclonal antibodies can vary significantly with each Omicron subvariant. For this reason, we continue to urge all citizens to get vaccinated and for those eligible to get a booster shot as well. We can see a pattern that countries with high vaccination rates are reporting significantly lower deaths and hospitalization rates. Earlier this week, EMA received an application for marketing authorization for the monoclonal cocktail called Evushield. This treatment has been under rolling review since October last year. The applicant has provided robust data, and EMA's Human Medicine Committee, the CHMP, has now started to assess the formal application. Thanks to all the preparatory work done during the rolling review, the CHMP could come to a conclusion within a matter of weeks. The Evushield submission refers to the use as passive immunization to prevent COVID-19 based on the results of a pivotal clinical study in pre-exposure prophylaxis. Evushield also retains the ability to neutralize the Omicron BA.2 subvariant, similarly to other variants of concern that were studied in their pivotal trial. Besides Evushield, two other COVID-19 treatments, which are called Olumiant and Lagevrio, are currently also under evaluation. It is difficult anyway to estimate at this point when the committee might be able to give recommendations. For Olumiant, which is based on the drug called baricitinib, results from the recovery study have been recently published, showing a survival benefit with the use of baricitinib on top of standard of care, including steroids, and in several patients, tocilizumab as well. This data will be fully assessed once submitted. Large randomized and adequately controlled clinical studies are again demonstrating their ability to provide the clinical evidence that could allow rapid approval of treatments for COVID-19. More efforts, therefore, should be devoted to establishing clinical trust platforms and networks that can reach the size required to ultimately demonstrate the benefits of new treatments. As of today, we have approved 7 medicines for the treatment of COVID-19, which are available for patients across the European Union. When it comes to vaccines, you will have seen statements from some vaccine developers that stress the need for a second booster shot. I want to reiterate that from a regulatory point of view, there is not yet enough evidence, either from clinical trials or from real-world evidence, supporting a recommendation on the need for a second booster shot in the general population. While targeted use in selected elderly populations has been considered by some member states based on some preliminary results from real-world effectiveness from Israel. So far, we have also not received any application for a second booster dose. More data are expected later in the spring, which will be considered for any possible regulatory decision. These data will be reviewed along emerging data with adaptive vaccines to define the possible approval of an adaptive vaccine over the summer period. We welcome that developers are considering both monovalent and bivalent vaccines so that different options can be considered once the clinical trial results are available later in the second quarter of this year. As public health authorities in most member states are expected to consider revaccination campaigns in the fall, there is a need to define an effective vaccination strategy in terms of target groups and vaccine composition. Over the past week, Nuvaxovid, the vaccine from Novavax, has been rolled out across Europe and more than 3.7 million doses have been distributed as of today, according to the European CDC. The current uptake, however, seems to be limited due to the perception that the pandemic is waning. It is of the utmost importance that anyone who has not received any dose of a vaccine takes the opportunity to get vaccinated as soon as possible, taking into account the larger portfolio of options that now is available. Preliminary data are showing that the immune response induced by Nuvaxovid with the primary vaccination series stimulates a similar level of antibodies which are active against Omicron as the messenger RNA vaccines did. We are expecting more data to come as the rollout of the vaccine continues in Europe and worldwide. We are in close contact with developers of additional vaccines and treatments, and we provide them with rapid scientific advice upon their request. There are a few products in the pipeline for which the evaluation process under rolling review could start relatively soon. Rolling reviews for a number of other vaccines, such as the ones developed by Valneva and Sanofi Pasteur GSK, are still ongoing, but no firm timetable for a possible opinion has yet been set. Looking at the vaccines and treatments already authorized for the European market, I would like to invite you to check out our clinical data website, where we publish the clinical data that have been submitted to EMA in support of applications for marketing authorization for COVID-19 vaccines and treatments. We have recently published several data packages which reflect the high level of evaluation activities that we see with these products after they have been authorized. This highlights that medicines regulation is a continuum in which new evidence is generated, assessed, and published all the time. I will stop here and give the floor back to our moderator. Thank you.
Many thanks, Dr. Cavaleri. We are now open up the floor for questions. And dear colleagues from the media, please turn on your camera if you want to ask a question. And as usual, please click on the icon at the bottom of the WebEx window to raise your hand. When I give you the floor, we will unmute your microphone and you can then ask your question. The first question is coming from Maria Psara from EFSIN in Greece. Maria, please.
Hello, thanks for the floor and the briefing. Maria Psara from Star TV Greece. I have two questions, if I may. As you said, Dr. Cavaleri, we see a spike of the COVID cases again. Do you think it is too early, it is too early to lift the COVID restrictions in the different member states? And the second question, you mentioned the Evushield, if I say the name right. If I'm not wrong, the UK green-lighted today this AstraZeneca's antibody cocktail. Do you also have indications that indeed reduces the risk of coronavirus infection by up to 80%? And if yes, would it be a game changer for the pandemic? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria. There are two questions, one on the spike of cases in many European countries and whether it's too early to lift the restrictions, and the other one on Evushield and its protection against Omicron. So both questions go to Dr. Cavaleri.
Yeah, so it's difficult to say whether restrictions have been lifted too early, but clearly at this stage we might have to consider that probably this is one of those aspects that contributed to an increase of these cases. What is important anyway is that we always have to monitor how many of these cases then translate to severe COVID with hospitalization or admission to the intensive care unit, because at the end of the day, that's what we should care the most from a public health perspective. So it's difficult to say whether these restrictions have been lifted too early. With respect to your second question, Evushield indeed is an interesting cocktail of monoclonal antibodies with a long half-life, so potentially giving protection over several months once administered. And this cocktail showed in their pivotal clinical trial high efficacy, as you said, and now the CHMP is evaluating this data and will come out with an opinion as soon as possible based on such figures. Overall, this product could be quite important in the context of subjects that are not responding very well to vaccination, such as immunocompromised individuals, because it will give another line of defense and protection from infection of the end disease, which could be very important in this rather vulnerable group. And then it will up to member states to decide if they want to use this type of cocktail of monoclonals also in a larger population as an additive help in terms of preventing COVID-19.
Thanks, Dr. Cavaleri. I'm now giving the floor to Thomas Migliarina from Swiss TV. Thomas, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you. Buongiorno, Dr. Cavaleri. Two questions as well. One, excuse my ignorance, is there a risk that if you do a second booster too soon, this booster might be little or no effective? And the second question, given the situation we know about it, do you still have any contact with Russia, either on Sputnik or any other dossier? Thank you.
Thank you very much for these two questions. The first one is for Dr. Cavaleri and the second one is for Dr. Sweeney. So first, Dr. Cavaleri on the second booster and effectiveness.
Yeah, so we have started seeing some data being generated in Israel where, as you know, they started administering a second booster dose. And I think just came out on the New England Journal of Medicine a paper from a study in healthcare workers in which a second booster dose was administered. And what we're seeing is that the immune response restored the level of antibodies that we're seeing after the first booster shot. So we don't see really an increase, but we see a restoration of the level of antibodies. And what they've seen also in this study, that the prevention of infection was rather limited for both Comirnaty and Spikevax, so suggested that in young adults, there might not be really a great benefit of administering a second booster shot at this point in time. The situation might be quite different in the elderly, and again, another study from Israel has been showing that there is an impact of the second booster dose in an elderly population when the booster is given at least after 5 months from the first booster, in terms of reducing the number of people that get hospitalized with COVID-19, even if not to the same extent that we've seen after the first booster. So that's why we think it would be important to collect more evidence to have a clearer picture around what is the value of administering a second booster with the current vaccine composition and what could be the best timing.
Thank you very much. Now for the question on Russia or contacts with Russia, I give the question to Dr. Sweeney. Dr. Sweeney, please.
So thank you for your question. You asked specifically also about the Sputnik vaccine. So EMA's role obviously is in evaluating medicines. Sputnik vaccine has been under rolling review, but currently there is no activity in that review cycle. And beyond that, we don't have other Russian products under review or indeed current contact with the Russian authorities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next question comes from Thomas Moulier from Bloomberg. Thomas, please.
Yes, thank you. Actually, I have two questions. One is about the vaccine made by Medicago. There's been a little bit of controversy about that by the WHO and Canadian health authorities. I was just wondering, is it anywhere in a process with the EMA? And given its links to the tobacco industry, will you be assessing it if they would apply or if they have applied? And the other question is regarding Sputnik. Does this mean that the EMA has suspended that rolling review?
Thank you very much. Again, two questions. So the first one on Medicago is for Dr. Cavaleri. For you, please.
Yeah, we are in contact with the company. We have been in contact for a long time now. So if and when they will be ready to submit an application to the European Union, the EMA will be ready to look at it and to evaluate. But this has not happened yet, so we are really looking forward to having a better understanding of when this submission could be made and then when we could start reviewing this vaccine. So no preclusion on this vaccine.
Thank you very much. The second question was on the status of the rolling review of Sputnik again. Dr. Sweeney.
Thank you. So I can just reiterate what I said, that there is no activity on the rolling review at this stage, and I don't currently anticipate any in the immediate future.
Thank you very much. I'm now giving the floor to Tara Tomovic from Euronews Serbia. Tara.
Greetings from Belgrade. Well, I think we didn't understand you well. World Health Organization delays review on Russia's Sputnik V vaccine on Ukraine conflict. But did the sanctions of the European Union on Russia affect the course, or you just don't have contact with Russians now? Can you please explain us that? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, the relationship with Russia, Dr. Sweeney?
So we have no contact at the present time.
Thank you very much. So nothing, not a lot to add on this. I think now we have a question from Ludwig Burger from Reuters. Ludwig, do you want to take the floor?
Yeah, thank you very much. Can you please, I know you mentioned, Dr. Cavaleri, you mentioned this in your introductory remarks, the timeline for any, if I understand correctly, on the Omicron-specific vaccine. Did I understand correctly? In the summer, can you give us maybe a bit more granularity or certainty, and how certain are you about that time horizon for a potential recommendation? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cavaleri, on the question on a variant vaccine before summer.
Yeah, and of course, here it will be very important that we receive information from the company, first of all, about the manufacturing aspect, but also very importantly to have the data from the clinical trials that, as you all know, are currently ongoing. So depending on when the data from these clinical trials will be made available, we can then set in a more definitive way what could be the timetable for a potential approval of these updated vaccines. Based on what we know so far in our forecast, we would imagine that and expect that this result could be made available in a period that goes from April to beginning of July. And so based on that, we will be in a position to really define when approval could be done, understanding that, of course, it will be important to this during the summer so that in the fall the supply of updated vaccine could be made available for member states so that they can start their vaccination campaigns later on.
Thank you very much. I don't see any hands any longer. So if there are no more questions from journalists, I want to close today's press briefing. Thank you very much for your questions and for your interest in our work. And also a big thank you to my colleagues who participated today. And one important remark, so in the future we are planning to hold these COVID-19 briefings only once per month instead of bi-weekly. So you will receive an invite to the next briefing in April in the coming weeks. And as always, if you have any further questions or feedback, please do not hesitate to follow up with the press office at press@ema.europa.eu. Thank you very much and have a nice afternoon. Bye-bye.